So if I were to start writing a novel, I have no idea what the characters would be, what it would be about, what sort of plot points would happen, or anything of that sort. I can almost guarantee that if I were to start writing a novel right now, I would just start with a random thought in my head. What would be something? I might start with something super descriptive, descriptive of what's actually happening in my life. Like, Joshua trudged through the snow, gripping his stomach. And then I'd probably write the next line of, like, okay, why is he gripping his stomach? Or maybe I wouldn't. Maybe I would think it'd be more interesting not to talk about why he's gripping his stomach, and instead to describe the blood trail behind him. The way I would do it is I wouldn't worry about the novel. I'd worry about the writing. I wouldn't worry about having anything to say. I wouldn't worry about backstories or any of that. I would basically just start writing, letting one sentence feed into another, and see where they lead to. The reason I bring that up is I have a feeling the way a lot of people would write a novel is they would think about what it is they were trying to say. There's nothing wrong with that unless thinking about what you're trying to say keeps you from writing said novel. There's nothing wrong with coming up with backstories and motivations unless those things keep you from working. There's nothing wrong with outlining an entire story on index cards or on post-it notes, unless, again, doing so keeps you from working. So I kind of know what it is I'm trying to do in any given medium. I want to be surprised. I want to constantly be at a state where I'm like, oh, I can't believe I just made that. Or I can't believe I just wrote that. Or I can't believe I just said that. Whatever it is. And it's not because I want to be transgressive or crazy or offensive or anything. It's because the part of making that's so interesting to me is getting somewhere I didn't anticipate. So if I were to write a novel and have a point in mind, or have an ending or a destination beyond write novel, it would run counter to the things that get me moving. I get more excited by the strange connections I might make between two things. Those motivate me to make more. When I wrote a book, I realized that I hated the process because I hated having a point right off the top and having to argue the point. I kind of like discovering the point. And I think that my point here is process is super important, but the process also needs to be the thing that leads to the kind of results or kind of destination that you're interested in. So I'm interested in surprise. So things are largely engineered around getting to surprise. Art making is constantly evolving and expanding, and one experiment might lead to something that I can establish as, okay, this is good. But my hope is always that the thing I've established as being good, within that continues a succession of micro surprises. So the photography I make yields these sort of micro surprises. In general, at this point, I know what's going to happen. But within each individual photo, I'm not sure what's going to happen. And that's the part that ends up still being exciting. At the same time, I continue to investigate new ways of making things, because I also want those big dramatic surprises of, oh, so that's what happens when you do that. if you understand what those kind of values are, it becomes much easier to figure out how to alter your process in order to get the feeling that you're after. Because ultimately, I do think it's about a feeling more so than a product. And I have aesthetics and I have standards and all of that great stuff, but there's a feeling I'm after. Because there's lots of work I've made that's visually good or conceptually good, but I felt like the process was pretty anemic. It doesn't give me the feeling I want. And so at the same time, I engineer the processes to lead towards surprise. I could just as easily decide that I'm after something different, an iterative thing or a mutation sort of effect, or the same thing again and again. And then I could re-engineer the process in order to yield those results consistently. The actionable part of this, besides figure out what work you've made that you love and you felt alive while you were making it and what you did to get there, but also start to read more about creative process beyond the nonsense of take a hot shower or go to the museum or go for a walk or read a pet raising book or whatever dumb shit people say. But instead, read about process stuff and then apply them. Conduct consistent experiments where you alter what you're doing and then see if, one, the new action you're doing, if you're into it, and then two, are you stoked on the results? Because that's all that matters in the end. All right, thanks a lot for watching. Subscribe if you have not already.